he sold our house behind my back and thought he got away with it. No warning, no apology, just a smug little voice. On the other end of the line, I've already signed the papers, Rachel. The deal's done. You'll need to find somewhere else to live. I stood in the middle of Chicago O'Hare Airport bags in hand mine spinning, and for a full 10 seconds, I couldn't even breathe. That house wasn't just bricks and drywall. It was my sanctuary, the one thing I poured my soul into for 7 straight years. And he thought he could erase it with a single phone call. He didn't know I'd already moved the deed into my name. Didn't know his little surprise was about to backfire hard. Because while he was busy playing house with his shiny new girlfriend, I was quietly loading the legal shotgun. He thought he could throw me out and walk away clean. Oh, honey, he had no idea who he was messing with. My name is Rachel Matthews. I'm 34, an architect, a damn good one. I build things clean lines, solid structure, nothing left to chance. Maybe that's why the mess in my personal life hit so hard. I'd spent years building a life with someone who saw everything I made as his to destroy. Derek Simmons. My ex-husband on paper at least, 41 financial consultant, sharp dresser, smooth talker, and now professional liar. We met in our 20s back when ramen and rent were the biggest problems we had. Back when Derek still looked at me like I was the sun, not a stepping stone. We bought a modest 2-story brownstone in Lincoln Park, just outside downtown Chicago. It wasn't much then, cracked windows, peeling paint, creaky stairs, but I loved it. It was our project, our home. I handled the design, the layout, the color palette. He handled, well, the mortgage application. To be fair, there were good years. Laughter in the kitchen, movie nights on the floor, dreams whispered under shared blankets. But slowly, almost too slow to notice, it shifted. Derek got a promotion, then another, and with every step up the corporate ladder, he became a little colder, a little more entitled, a little more absent. I told myself he was just stressed, that the long hours and secretive meetings were for us, for our future. But I wasn't stupid. I saw the signs, the password-protected phone, the cologne that didn't match mine, the way he smiled when he texted never at me. And then there was Natalie, blonde, polished, a lifestyle influencer with a curated smile and 600,000 followers. She started popping up in Derek's photos, company parties he forgot to mention. And when I confronted him, he laughed, brushed it off like I was paranoid, said I was too intense, too sensitive, and not fun anymore. Right. Meanwhile, my best friend Sasha, sharp as a whip and one hell of a lawyer, kept telling me to protect myself. She practically dragged me to her office 6 months ago to sign the papers that quietly transferred the deed of the house to my name. Just in case, she said. I remember laughing at the time. What were we preparing for? Derek wouldn't do something that reckless, that cruel. But Sasha knew. She'd seen it too many times. So when that call came at the airport, when Derek told me, with zero shame, that he'd sold our house, he didn't realize he was trying to sell something that wasn't even his anymore. And that mistake, that smug little oversight, it was about to cost him everything. I replayed his voice over and over in my head, flat, detached, triumphant. I've sold the house. Rachel, Natalie, and I need the space. You understand? Understand, I was standing in the middle of Terminal 3, just off a flight from a week-long design expo in Seattle, still dragging my luggage across cold tile when my husband called to tell me he'd erased my entire life with the flick of a pen. There was no warning, no conversation, not even a courtesy text, just a decision his decision announced, like some executive order I was supposed to accept. I stepped outside, away from the buzz of travelers and gate announcements, into the biting Chicago air. I wasn't crying, not yet. Instead, I dialed Sasha. She picked up immediately. "Tell me you're safe." "Yeah," I said. "But Derek just called. He says he sold the house." A beat. Then her voice sharpened. "He thinks he sold it." I told her everything. The call, his tone. Natalie's name dropped like it was nothing. There was silence on the line, then a low, amused scoff. "Rachel, that idiot just committed fraud." My spine straightened. "What do you mean?" "You have sole ownership. Remember you refinanced last spring? You signed, he signed, I filed it. The deed's been in your name for over 6 months. If he went ahead and sold that house, he forged something." I pulled up the email confirmation right there on the airport curb. Sure enough, Rachel Matthews, sole owner. It hit me like a thunderclap. Derek didn't even read the papers he signed. He thought he was being clever, that I was still the naive wife, too busy picking cabinet colors to notice legal documents. I laughed. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because the absurdity of it all cracked something open inside me. He'd really done it. Sold a house he no longer owned. Probably already cashed the deposit. Probably already told Natalie they were moving in. I felt my heartbeat slow as something new settled in my chest. Not shock, not sadness, power. He thought he was walking off into the sunset with a blonde influencer and a down payment. Instead, he'd walked into a legal buzzsaw. By the time I got home that night, Sasha had already started drafting the cease and desist letter. I walked into my house, and stood in the foyer like it was the first time. His coat was still slung over the stair rail, his shoes still by the front door. The mail was stacked on the entry table credit card, offers a letter from the realtor, and one from the buyers. Oh, the buyers. 2 young professionals from Evanston. Their letter was polite, excited, even thanking us for agreeing to the sale. They'd been hoping to move in by the end of the month. My jaw clenched. Derek hadn't just blindsided me. He'd pulled 2 strangers into his tornado of lies. Sasha texted a few hours later. "Letter's ready. Sending it to Derek and the buyers tonight. Sit tight, sit tight." I poured myself a glass of wine and sat at the dining table, staring at the same granite surface where Derek and I had once dreamed up our future. Babies, travel, retirement by the lake. He threw it all away for clout and a curated Instagram aesthetic. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Derek this time. "Hey, I know it's a lot right now, but this is best for both of us. Best for both of us." He didn't even have the guts to say sorry. Didn't ask where I'd go. Didn't care. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened the file Sasha sent and reread every line. The sale is invalid. The owner did not consent. Forgery is a federal offense. I slept better that night than I had in weeks, because now this wasn't just personal, it was tactical. And Derek, he was about to learn what it feels like to be played. The next morning I woke up before the sun slipped into jeans and tied my hair back like I was gearing up for battle, because I was. This wasn't just about a house anymore. It was about control, about being erased, and deciding to write myself back in. Sasha met me at her office in the Loop black coffee, in one hand thick legal folder in the other. "No pleasantries today," she said. "We go straight for the throat." I nodded. "I'm done being polite." We reviewed the paperwork, clean, airtight damming. A copy of the deed, timeline of ownership, screenshots of Derek's emails, confirmation from the mortgage lender, even security camera footage of Derek giving the realtor a house tour without my knowledge. How the hell did he even get this far? I asked. Sasha shrugged. Charisma, charm, and people not doing their homework. But we've got everything we need. By noon, the cease and desist letters were sent to the realtor, the buyers, and Derek himself. Sasha's language surgical. Illegal conveyance of property. Unauthorized representation. Immediate termination of transaction or escalation to civil and criminal court. No fluff, no wiggle room. By 3 p.m., the buyer's attorney called Sasha directly, furious, confused, and more than a little embarrassed. They'd already wired part of the deposit, already booked movers, already started dreaming. But to their credit, they agreed to cooperate. They'd been misled, and now they wanted to go after him. That was the break we needed. Sasha smiled when she hung up. Your ex-husband just turned 2 innocent people into co-plaintiffs. We're stacking pressure. Meanwhile, Derek was silent. No calls, no texts, no explanation, which of course meant one thing: he was panicking. I walked into the house that evening, my house, and found a single yellow post-it stuck to the fridge. Just one word in his handwriting. Talk. I peeled it off slowly. Talk after forging my name. Stealing my home and tossing our marriage aside like day-old takeout. No, Derek. We're way past talking. The next morning, I was in the middle of reviewing kitchen renovation plans when the door slammed open. He walked in like he still lived there, hair uncombed, face tight, phone clutched in his hand. I didn't flinch. What the hell is this, Rachel? He threw Sasha's letter on the counter like it might explode. You're telling me I can't sell the house? That it's not mine? I looked him dead in the eye. That's exactly what I'm telling you. You're lying. You signed the transfer, Derek, 6 months ago. Don't you remember? Refinancing, lower interest rate. You signed everything. I have your initials on every page. He blinked, the color draining from his face. He really didn't remember. Of course he didn't. He never read anything unless it was about him. You tricked me, he said, the accusation weak like a balloon half deflated. I crossed my arms. No, Derek, you tricked yourself because you never thought I'd pay attention. You thought I was just some decoration in your perfect little life. He paced the kitchen, running both hands through his hair, cursing under his breath. This is insane. You're blowing this out of proportion. I already told Natalie we were moving in. I signed with the realtor. We've spent part of the deposit. My head snapped toward him. You what? He froze. Too late. The truth was out. You've already spent part of a deposit for a home you didn't even own. I stepped closer, voice low, deliberate. You do realize what that is? Right. That's fraud, Derek. Federal, prosecutable. Do you think Natalie will stick around once she knows you could go to prison over this? He laughed, bitter, hollow. She doesn't know yet. I stared at him for a long moment. Then I'd suggest you be the one to tell her, because if she finds out from me, and she will, it won't be pretty. His bravado started to crack. The confident posture slipping, the fake outrage melting into fear. And that's when I knew he wasn't just panicking, he was unraveling. Here's what's going to happen, I said, pointing to the folder on the kitchen table. You're going to cancel the sale. You're going to return every cent. And you're going to sign these divorce papers without argument, without delay. He opened the folder like it might bite him. Brows furrowed, hands shaking. I need time to think, he muttered. No. You've already taken everything you thought you could get. Now I'm the one calling the shots. He stood there silent, pathetic. I grabbed my coat and walked toward the door. Before stepping out, I turned one last time. You tried to take my house, Derek, but what you really did was set me free. A few days passed in a strange, loaded silence. I didn't hear from Derek. No texts, no emails, no late-night voicemails begging for forgiveness or raging threats. Just nothing. Which frankly was worse, because silence meant plotting. I stayed ready. I cleared out his things. Not in a dramatic throw-it-all-in-the-street kind of way, but calm, calculated. Every tailored suit, every overpriced sneaker, folded, boxed, stacked neatly in the guest room, labeled with a note, "Pick up before Friday." Or I donated all. Thursday came, so did they. It was just past 6 p.m. when I heard the keys turn his keys. I'd changed the locks, but Sasha insisted I leave one backup, set in a secure lockbox until the divorce finalized. Legal caution. Something Derek clearly took as an open invitation. I looked up from the dining table and there they were. Derek standing tall in his designer coat. And next to him, all radiant smugness and arrogance, was Natalie. She walked in like she owned the place. Pearl earrings, designer heels, a tote bag worth more than our first mortgage. Arm looped around his gaze, sweeping the living room with lazy disdain. So she said, her voice syrupy, "This is where we're staying." I stood slowly, heart calm, voice steadier than I expected. "No," I said. "This is where Derek was staying. You, Natalie, won't be staying here at all." Her smile faltered. Derek looked from her to me, confused. "What's this about?" he asked. "I thought This is my home, Derek," I interrupted. "You tried to sell it. You failed. And now you think you can just walk back in like nothing happened with her." Natalie stepped forward, tilting her head. "I'm sorry, I think you're confused. Derek told me this was his apartment, that he sold it, that I raised a hand. Let me stop you right there. Derek tried to sell it, but he couldn't because he doesn't own it. The deed. It's in my name, has been for months. He forged his way through a fake sale and almost landed himself in jail. And now you're standing in someone else's house thinking it's yours." Her eyebrows pinched. She turned to Derek. "Wait, what is she talking about?" He tried to wave her off. "It's complicated. I was going to explain." No, I said, stepping forward. "Let me explain. Your boyfriend lied. He committed fraud. He promised you a new life in a home that legally belongs to someone else. And now he's on the hook for every cent of that deposit." Natalie's mouth opened, then closed. Then she turned to him, her voice rising. "You said it was done. You said the place was yours, that you sold it." Derek raised both hands like that could slow the implosion. "Babe, listen, I didn't want to worry you." "Oh my God," she said, taking a full step back. "You lied about everything, didn't you? Even the money. You told me you got the deposit already, that we were putting it toward the new condo." He flinched, and there it was, the unraveling, live in real time. Natalie turned to me, suddenly humbler. "Are you serious about pressing charges?" I nodded once. "Very." She gave Derek one last glance, a mix of disgust and disbelief, then stormed out the door without another word. The silence that followed was almost musical. Derek stood there slack-jawed, the door still swinging behind her, reality finally crashing down around him. "You don't have to do this," he whispered. "You can still." I laughed, hard, clean. "Don't beg now, Derek. You made your choice when you picked lies over truth. Ego over partnership, Natalie over me. Now you're left with nothing but your own mess." He stepped forward, shoulders slumped, voice softer. "Rach, come on. We've been together for 6 years. Doesn't that mean anything I didn't blink? You threw that away the moment you picked up the phone and told me to find a new place to live. Remember that moment, that smug little chuckle when you thought you'd won. He closed his eyes, swallowing hard. I was scared. I thought if I moved fast enough, I could start over before things got ugly. I tilted my head. Too late. I walked to the kitchen, grabbed the divorce papers, and set them on the coffee table. Sasha had prepped everything. All he had to do was sign. "This is your way out," I said. "You sign these, you walk away. No charges, no drama. But if you fight this, if you try anything else, I won't be so generous next time." He stared at the folder like it might bite him. Then finally, slowly, he picked up the pen. He signed. Not a word, not a fight, just defeat. When he handed the papers back, I took them without a word. Then I opened the front door. "Your things are in the guest room," I said. "You've got until tomorrow night. Then they're gone." He didn't move, just stood there broken. "You really hate me, don't you?" I turned to him one last time. "I don't hate you, Derek. I pity you. You had everything, someone who loved you, a home we built together, and you torched it for a fantasy you couldn't even afford." He didn't respond, didn't argue, just walked out head low past the woman who'd outplayed him without raising her voice. And as I closed the door behind him, clicked the new lock into place, a calm washed over me. It was quiet, still, mine. And for the first time in years, I felt free. That night, as the quiet settled over the house like fresh snow, I found myself standing in the hallway outside the guest room, staring at the boxes, not out of sadness, not out of regret, just reflection. I opened one. Inside a watch I bought him for his promotion. The leather band still smelled faintly like the cologne he used to wear back when he still kissed me before leaving for work. There was a time when I thought that watch would last longer than we would. Funny how people don't just change overnight, they evolve or decay. Back then, Derek wasn't the man who forged documents and lied through his teeth. He was charming, attentive, dangerously persuasive. We met at a friend's rooftop party. He was telling a story about crashing a wedding in New York. Everyone, laughing eyes glued to him. He made you feel like the only person in the room. And when he turned that gaze on me, I didn't stand a chance. He chased hard, flowers, handwritten notes, weekend getaways I couldn't afford, but he insisted were on him. He called me brilliant, said I had eyes that knew how to rebuild broken things. I should have seen it then how good he was at saying exactly what someone needed to hear. But when you want to believe in someone, you don't look for cracks, you fill them. We moved fast. By the end of that first year, we were living together in a tiny one-bedroom in Wicker Park. Exposed brick drafty windows, charm for days. I was juggling freelance contracts just to cover utilities while Derek was building his financial future. He had a plan, always had a plan. I believed in it, in him. He'd stay up late, pacing, talking about equity and client pools and leveraged accounts. I'd sit there sketching floor plans for a startup office I knew wouldn't pay me for 6 weeks. We made it work. Together. When we found the brownstone in Lincoln Park, it was a wreck. But it was our wreck. He stood in the middle of the torn-up living room, arms wide, and said, "This is where we grow up, Rach. You and me. No landlords, no ceilings." We signed the mortgage a week later. Split everything down the middle, or so I thought. The first few years in that house were golden. Paint splattered on our clothes, arguments over backsplash tiles, late-night pizza on the unfinished kitchen floor. And for a while we really were a team. He helped with invoices when I couldn't figure out tax season. I coached him through his first pitch deck, but somewhere around year 4, he started changing. The late nights became more frequent. So did the business trips places that didn't quite match his calendar. He stopped asking me about projects, stopped noticing the little things like when I'd cut my hair or rearranged the guest room. I caught him smiling at his phone one night. I asked what was funny. He said, just a meme from work. But he turned the screen away. Later, I found a receipt in the laundry. A dinner in River North, 2 entrees, 2 drinks, 1 hotel charge. I didn't say anything, not because I didn't care, but because I was afraid that if I asked, he'd confirm the worst. And I wasn't ready for the truth. Instead, I focused harder on work, took on bigger clients, buried myself in blueprints and CAD files, told myself we were just in a slump, that things would swing back. They always had before, until they didn't. He started criticizing everything, my cooking, my clothes, my tone when I asked simple questions. Everything became an overreaction, or worse, my fault. One night after he missed our anniversary dinner for the 3rd year in a row, I sat alone at our dining table and stared at the untouched candlelit plates, and I realized something. The man I loved wasn't in that house anymore, just his shell. And I was filling in the gaps with memories of someone who no longer existed. I told Sasha everything the next day, every weird text, every receipt. She didn't say I told you so. She just handed me a pen and said, we need to protect what's yours before he decides it's his. That was 6 months before the airport call, before Natalie, before the lie unraveled. Back then, it felt like a betrayal waiting to happen. Now it feels like closure. I closed the box, sealed it shut, labeled it in big bold letters, Derek Final. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't hoping for the old version of him to come back. I was done waiting, and I was finally ready to move on. The morning after Derek left for good, the house felt foreign, not haunted exactly, just hollow. His scent still clung to the hallway. The faint echo of his footsteps lingered in the floorboards. It was like the house hadn't caught up to the fact that he was gone. But I had, so I made coffee, strong, black, the way I like it. No almond milk, no sweetener, no compromise. Then I picked up a box cutter and started tearing through the past. First came the closet. Gone were the polos he never wore but insisted on keeping. Gone was that hideous leather jacket he called vintage, even though it smelled like beer and midlife crisis. Gone was the cologne I used to buy him every Christmas, thinking maybe this scent would bring us back. I scrubbed baseboards, pulled down every picture frame he was in, filled 4 garbage bags with things that no longer served me. Then came the real transformation. I pushed the sectional couch away from the wall and rearranged the living room. Hung a huge piece of abstract art I'd been hiding in storage, one I'd always loved, but he said was too loud. Painted the dining room a deep, moody navy. Lit candles without asking if it gave him a headache. Reclaimed the silence and made it warm. For the first time in forever, the house started to feel like it belonged to me again. That night, I poured a glass of wine and collapsed on the new rug, barefoot hair still flecked with paint. No Netflix, no noise, just me. And the stillness I used to fear. Only now it felt like peace. A few days later, Sasha stopped by. She walked in, looked around, and whistled low. Damn, Rach, this place looks like a home now. I smiled. Feels like it too. We sat in the kitchen, sipping from mismatched mugs because I'd thrown out the set we bought together. She leaned back in her chair. So, what now? I paused, then smiled wider. I'm launching it, launching what the workshop for women, financial literacy, legal basics, asset protection, all the stuff I should have learned before things went south. Sasha blinked, then grinned. Rachel Matthews, life architect. I laughed, but it felt right, because I wasn't just rebuilding my house, I was rebuilding me. And if I could help other women do the same, why the hell wouldn't I? We put together the first workshop outline that night, basic titles. Know your rights, prenups aren't taboo. How to read a contract without crying. It wasn't fancy, it wasn't even finalized, but it was real, and it was mine. By the end of the week, I had 5 sign-ups, 2 of them total strangers, who found the flyer I left at the coffee shop. I turned the guest room into a home office, bought a cheap second-hand desk, stacked legal templates next to a vision board filled with bold quotes and brighter goals. And just like that, the space that once held Derek's junk became the launchpad for something bigger. I didn't ignore the pain. I let it live where it needed to. But I stopped feeding it. Instead, I gave energy to new routines. Morning walks around the block, weekly yoga at the park, brunches with Sasha and a small circle of women who'd been there divorced, dumped, disrespected, but never defeated. We shared stories, laughed too loud, cried without shame, healed quietly and fiercely. One afternoon, I came across a voicemail I hadn't deleted yet. Derek's voice. I made a mistake, Rachel. I messed up. Maybe we can talk, please. I listened once, then deleted it without hesitation. Closure doesn't always come wrapped in a neat little bow. Sometimes it's just silence chosen intentional empowering. By month's end, the brownstone looked like it had never known him. Lighter, brighter, mine, and not because he was gone, but because I was finally back. Rachel Matthews, 34, architect, educator, survivor. And every square inch of this new life built from the wreckage he left behind, stronger than anything he ever imagined I could be. It was a Tuesday when the final envelope arrived. Cream-colored, embossed seal. Inside the finalized divorce decree, signed, filed, stamped, official. I stared at the letter for a long moment, then set it on the kitchen counter, next to a steaming cup of tea and a candle burning low. No tears, no dramatic music swelling in the background, just a quiet breath. A long, steady exhale I didn't even know I'd been holding. It was done. Not just the paperwork, but him, the version of me that tolerated less bent more and waited for someone else to choose me. She was gone too. Sasha took me out that night to celebrate. Downtown rooftop bar, the kind of place I used to think was too much, but now it felt exactly right. You look different, she said, raising a glass of champagne. Better, I smirked. Freer, she replied. Like you finally shook off a ghost. We toasted under the city lights, 2 women, 2 warriors. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt whole. I danced that night. Not for anyone else, no performance, no pretending. Just me, moving in a body that finally felt like mine again. And the next morning I woke up without that familiar heaviness in my chest. No dread, no anxiety about what mood would walk through the door, what lie would slip past my ears, what cold shoulder I'd have to ignore. Just quiet, just sunlight, just me. I took a long walk through the neighborhood, past the park, the bakery where Derek and I used to get croissants, the dog that barked every morning at 8:15. Nothing had changed, and yet everything had. People talk about closure like it's a moment, a scene, a dramatic line at the end of a movie. But for me, it was a slow, steady return to myself. In the weeks that followed, my workshop grew, word spread. Women showed up nervous, skeptical, but hopeful. Some had just left toxic marriages. Others were still deciding. Some were newly widowed or finally choosing to build something of their own after years of pouring into everyone else. And every time one of them looked me in the eye and said I didn't think I could do this alone, I smiled and said, "You're not alone anymore. I wasn't either." The house became a haven, not a memory museum, not a war zone, just a space where I could grow, laugh, rebuild. I planted herbs on the windowsill, learned to make sourdough bread, binge-watched documentaries, and rearranged the bookshelf 5 times. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't Instagrammable, but it was real and mine. One afternoon, I found a photo buried in a drawer. Derek and I, arms around each other, smiling like we had the world. I stared at it for a beat, not with longing, but with clarity. We did have something once, but that version of us lived in a chapter I no longer needed to reread. I slipped the photo into an envelope, labeled it past, not present, tucked it deep into a box, and closed it. That night, I sat on the porch with a glass of wine, bare feet up, heart steady. The wind felt warmer, the world wider. I wasn't waiting anymore, not for apologies, not for validation, not for closure. I had arrived, and the life ahead of me. It wasn't a comeback, it was a brand new beginning. If there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's that love should never cost you yourself. You can give someone your time, your energy, even your trust, but the moment they start asking for your dignity, for your silence, your shrinking, your surrender, that's the moment you walk away. Because the most dangerous lie we're taught, especially as women, is that staying is strength, that endurance equals virtue, that if we're just a little more patient, a little more forgiving, we'll finally be loved the way we deserve. But that's not how this works. Real love doesn't punish, it doesn't manipulate, it doesn't threaten to leave just to watch you beg. Real love sees you fully and stays anyway. And when it doesn't, when someone shows you who they are with their choices, their actions, their disregard, believe them. Protect your name, your credit, your home, and your peace. Know what's in your name. Read what you sign. Don't let trust be an excuse for ignorance. And most importantly, don't be afraid to start over, because starting over isn't failure. It's clarity. It's courage. It's the sacred, terrifying, beautiful decision to choose you. Again and again and again. I thought I lost everything when Derek walked out. But what I really lost was the illusion that I had to keep proving my worth to someone who never deserved me. And once that was gone, I finally had space to build something that did.